What's up, everybody? Let's talk Jets Radio. Hope you guys are all doing well, staying safe with this crazy snowstorm we've had. Quick video here, just taking a look at the New York Jets, their cap space, and upcoming free agents that they have to make some crucial decisions on. Because as you could see, not a lot of cap space that the Jets are going to be working with, at least to start the offseason. Currently slated at $1.4 million, according to Over the Cap. Now, obviously, that number could go significantly higher when you factor in the release of a couple players and some probable restructures as well. But certainly, when you go to the free agency tab and you look at the top list of players, right off the bat, the first thing that stands out that you notice, four of the top seven guys are all guys that are currently not under contract for this upcoming season. All guys that have had significant dead money attached to them, either initially in their contract or in the case of Jordan Whitehead and Carl Lawson prior to this past offseason, both of those players restructured. So obviously, this is a trend that's a little bit concerning with Joe Douglas, pushing some money into future seasons when the results are what they've been. Neither of those four players really had a major impact. I mean, Jefferson, he was solid, but you also have a lot of bodies in front of him. Certainly could have used that money elsewhere. And I think all the signs were there about Carl Lawson to try to potentially cut him prior to this past season and give Will McDonald, your first round pick, a few more opportunities. But it is what it is. So that money, I believe, is spread out for all four players over 3 years, the way the contract was structured. So I believe it comes out to about somewhere around $15 to $20 million in dead money for this upcoming season. And then you start to look at the free agents. But before you get into that, obviously, just going back real quick to this trend with Joe Douglas and the fact that this is supposed to be a win now team for the Jets. We all know that this is a 2 year window with Aaron Rodgers. Douglas is on the hot seat. He's got to make some things happen. And so the fact that he was willing to push money into the future with Dwayne Brown 2 years ago, and then again this past offseason with the restructures, it certainly makes you wonder what he might be willing to do now that he's facing the pressure of this upcoming offseason and the need to produce change and to seriously turn this thing around and actually get the team to win some games. So, is he going to go above and beyond in doing that in terms of, a player like Devontae Adams and, really wrecking the cap going forward? I think you do worry a little bit about when it comes time to pay Garrett Wilson and Sauce, possibly AVT if he could stay healthy, Brees Hall, Jermaine Johnson. Like when it comes time to pay all these guys, are they going to be able to do it, or are they going to be in an even worse state than they are right now as far as the dead money because they are so desperate to win and they know that they have this 2 year window to try to make it happen? So quickly going to the Jets roster and where they could potentially create some additional cap space. I think the obvious ones when you go to the post June 1st cuts where they can create the most cap space, or at least the two obvious ones, are Laken Tomlinson and then CJ Uzama. Tomlinson with the $13 million savings and Uzama with $8 million, so $21 million combined. You also take on almost $6 million and a little over $3 million as far as dead money with the two of those players. So that pushes your dead money total probably upwards of $25 to $30 million for this upcoming season, but we don't need to talk about that. So interesting decisions that you have to make there. I don't think there's anybody else that they can really cut or that they would really consider cutting. I think the one conversation that maybe you could have is about JFM. If your heart is really set on bringing back Bryce Huff and you feel that he's a more valuable component to this defense, even though JFM's a little bit more versatile, you can move him around pretty much anywhere on the D line. But if you feel like that premium edge rusher that Bryce Huff has become, if you feel like that's more valuable and you want to put that money that JFM is supposed to make towards Bryce Huff, certainly you could do that. You could save another, $13.9 million by cutting JFM. But I do think that he's a player that is definitely well liked. He's played well. I don't see them moving on from him. I think the more likely scenario is that Bryce Huff ultimately gets tagged and traded. But certainly a contract restructure could be in the works for a guy like JFM. Guys at the top like CJ Mosley and Quinnen Williams, possibly they could restructure as well. I don't think anything else is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers' contract with all the favors that he did them last offseason with his cap number and even for this upcoming season at $17 million. Alan Lazard is what it is. You get through this year, and then he's probably gone after that, but you can't really save anything by cutting him now. Same thing for Zach Wilson. Zero money that they could save there. Another unfortunate reality, and possibly another $11 million that'll be dead money, or money going towards a player that's not contributing. So now we're talking about $40 million in dead money. So again, don't need to talk about that. But again, other than that, I don't really see anywhere else that the Jets could really do anything else aside from maybe DJ Reed and Tyler Conklin, both players entering the final year of their contracts. You would think both players might want to just get to free agency and then test the market again, thinking that they can potentially get a better deal. You wonder if the Jets would maybe consider an extension or if there's any way to restructure there. But certainly you figure there's going to be at least 2, 3, or 4 restructures on top of the $21 million that they're going to get from the cuts with Uzama and Tomlinson. So you figure they enter free agency with maybe $40 to $50 million. You always carry some money into the season. You have your money that you got to use for draft picks. So you figure the Jets maybe have about $30 to $35 million in actual spending money. So you go to the list of free agents. Dwayne Brown, don't think he's coming back. Carl Lawson, don't think he's coming back. Definitely some decisions that I think you have to make about Jordan Whitehead and Chuck Clark. Whitehead, I definitely think, played well this year. He knows the solid defense from the last 2 years. He's played also with your trio of cornerbacks as well, so you definitely could consider bringing him back. Same thing with Chuck Clark. There was a lot of excitement when the Jets traded for him from Baltimore. Brings that physical mindset, that winning mentality, a leader, somebody that's kind of a hybrid safety / linebacker type that I think we all envisioned him kind of having that role in the defense. So would love to see him back, just seeing if he could actually be healthy and get on the field and see what he could do. But again, is he healthy, and what kind of contract is he looking for? What kind of opportunity is he looking for as well? The big question, I think, comes down to Mekhi Becton. I think this is going to be the one that's most debated. 25 years old, finally seems like he got his act together this offseason, was really proud of the work that he put in, and, proud of the way that he battled through this entire year. But unfortunately, he was a penalty machine, gave up a ton of sacks, did not play well, and you wonder what kind of contract he's looking for and what kind of opportunity he's looking for. Does he want to play left tackle? Is he still willing to be a right tackle? Is he looking for a long-term contract? Or can the Jets get him on a short-term deal? But the bigger question, I think, actually comes down to AVT. And that's something that the Jets have to figure out going into this offseason right away. Just what the plan is for AVT and what his future is. If he's going to be your future tackle, you already have Mitchell and Carter Warren for depth. You're probably going to sign somebody. You probably draft somebody too. I don't know where there would really be room for Mekhi Becton. Now, if AVT is going to stay as a guard, because remember, they said they want him to choose a spot and basically stick with it. They don't want him to flip-flop around. So if he's going to be your guard going forward, then I think you have to maybe at least consider the possibility of bringing Becton back on a short-term deal. If there isn't really much of a market for him out there, it wouldn't be as a guaranteed starter, but with an opportunity to compete with another signing and probably a relatively high draft pick, as well as Mitchell and Carter Warren. So just something to consider there. Bryce Huff is the one that's really, really tough because, homegrown player, undrafted, has overachieved and just gotten better every single year, double-digit sack guy. It seems like the more opportunities that he gets, the better he plays, but that's the problem. He's not willing to take a discount, and he wants the best opportunity for himself to showcase what he could do. And the way that Saleh rotates his D lineman, and the fact that the Jets invested a first-round pick in Will McDonald, I don't think he's going to get that opportunity here. But you also look at the rest of the Jets free agents. I don't know if there's anybody else that the Jets would even consider using the franchise tag on. So you wonder, obviously the number would be ginormous, but you wonder if the Jets would consider using the tag and then looking to potentially trade Huff, possibly to get back into the second round and recoup that pick that they lost from the Aaron Rodgers trade. Quentin Jefferson, good player, but also I think that with limited resources, you have to wonder, are guys like him potentially a luxury item? And maybe you have to look more towards guys like Tanzel Smart and some more under the radar players to kind of fill that role. You wonder what kind of contract he's looking for. Coming off injury, he's a little bit older, but certainly played well. Would love to have him back if the deal makes sense. But again, can the Jets afford to pay 3, 4 million, possibly more, for a rotational D lineman when you have already so many resources poured into your top 4 and 5? Randall Cobb, adios. I know he knows the offense. I think this year may have even been different if Rodgers was quarterback. But at 34 years old, I think he may even retire anyway. But you have young guys like Gibson, like Jason Brownlee, and then you factor in Lazard's roster spot, unfortunately, is guaranteed, and you need to sign at least 1 or 2 guys and possibly draft somebody. I just don't know where Randall Cobb could possibly fit in, and I think it would just be too tempting if you even just bring him to training camp. Unfortunately, I think it would just be too tempting for the Jets, for Rodgers to keep him on the roster just because he is familiar with the system and he knows everything. So I would just part ways there, move on. Greg Zuerlein, 37 years old, but still got it. Greg the Leg would absolutely try to bring him back, 1 or 2 year deal. Solomon Thomas, same kind of thing that I said with Quentin Jefferson could apply to Solomon Thomas. He may also be looking for an opportunity to cash in and have an increased role somewhere else. He certainly played pretty well this year. He's still young enough at age 29. So I'm not sure if he's going to be back. Al Woods at 37 years old, coming off a major injury. I don't know if he's back, but you certainly need somebody in the mold of Al Woods because the run defense has not been good, and it definitely took a hit after he went down. Justin Hardy, special teams ace, definitely have to bring him back. Connor McGovern, I would actually really like to see him back. I know a lot of fans don't really like him, but as far as a depth piece, a guy that can fill in at center, at guard, I wouldn't be looking at him as a potential starter, but certainly a guy that I would bring back in a depth role. Billy Turner, adios, done with that. Ashton Davis, somebody that has gotten better every year, a young player that you would think crazy that he's actually 28 years old. You say young player because he was drafted pretty recently, but he's also 28 already. Jordan Whitehead's actually younger, which is crazy. But you figure they're going to probably look to bring back maybe 2 of those 3 between Chuck Clark, Whitehead, and Ashton Davis. So depending on what kind of deal Davis is looking for, same thing with him. Does he have opportunities elsewhere to potentially start or have an increased role? Or what kind of role would he have here if the Jets don't bring back Jordan Whitehead? Something to consider. Morstead, 38 years old, but he still got it. Would definitely bring him back on a 1-year deal. And then pretty much everybody else is just, role players, guys that can fill in here and there. I guess the conversations maybe you would have are about Bryce Hall at corner. At one point it was thought that his career as a Jet was probably done, and then he had some opportunities this year, filled in and played pretty well. But again, same thing. Is he looking for an increased role somewhere else, knowing that the top 3 with the Jets at corner are pretty much set? Tanzel Smart, he's already signed and brought back for next year. Happy to see that. Kenny Yeboah, he was somebody that really impressed in training camp. I think they could definitely look to bring him back. Jake Hansen, he filled in a little bit. Jalen Holmes, guys like that. It would pretty much all be veteran minimum contracts. Nobody that's really doing anything for the salary cap. So definitely a few players that I think the team is going to look to bring back. In particular, Ashton Davis, I think he'll be one. Morstead and Zuerlein, I think they try to bring both of them back. Bryce Huff, like I said, I think he's going to be tagged and traded. I think one of Whitehead or Chuck Clark probably comes back. And I still think Becton's a possibility depending on what happens with AVT. So you figure none of those guys are really going to break the bank, but those contracts will add up. And if you are trying to make a big-time splash move like a Devontae Adams, in all likelihood, that's going to be at the cost of future draft picks, and it would almost definitely have to come with a restructure where you're once again pushing more cap space into 2026 and 2027. So something to definitely worry about. I understand and I hear a lot of the concerns. And also along with those concerns, you look at all the head coaches that are out there now. Belichick fired, Harbaugh interviewing in LA, Vrabel fired. Who knows what's going to happen with McCarthy and Sirianni. This may be one of the best head coaching free agent classes of all time. And of course, the Jets will probably end up being a year or two late. Not that any of these guys would probably want to come here anyway, but that's a conversation for another day. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave any comments below. I will do my best to get to all of them. Like I said, stay safe and talk to you guys later.